Good evening. Thank you for coming together, for taking the time out of your day to join us. My name is Anna Cohn. I'm the president of the Safe and Just Michigan Board. We've had an amazing year, from the maturation of clean slate legislation to working in coalition with other organizations to implement meaningful programs. Certainly, we have a lot to be celebrated. Notably, this has been a transformational year of active listening and learning. It is my hope that you have not taken any perceived retreat from our team as indifference. Rather, we recognize the greater importance of lifting up the organizations and voices who remain the subject matter experts in the field of criminal justice by having lived and survived through it. In the words of author and leader Margaret Wheatley, we strive to be brave enough to start a conversation that matters. At last year's meeting, we all experienced a sting that has taken many months to fully address. We have worked to repair some of this harm in so many ways, because by holding the title of Safe and Just Michigan, we acknowledge our responsibility to make our stakeholders feel safe and find justice. After all, it is stated in our vision. We do this work because we envision a Michigan in which all are safe in their communities and everyone is responsible for creating accountability, safety, and justice. That's why we've spent the last year working tirelessly, looking inward and respectfully building some of our most critical relationships. I want to thank our executive committee that has invested countless hours, energy, and dedication over the past year on a multitude of efforts. This includes Dr. Jennifer Cabina, our treasurer, and Mr. Ken Nixon, our secretary. Not pictured is our vice president, Monica Janer. These efforts have included the addition and subsequent nomination of Ken Nixon to our board of directors and to our executive committee. Ken is a talented and thoughtful leader in the field of criminal justice and represents exonerees and directly impacted individuals. We've widened our search for board members with more diverse backgrounds and experiences, and we remain committed to expanding our board and leadership to lift up these voices. To that end, we're eager to introduce you this evening to two of our newest senior staff, Cassie LaRue and Cecilia Zavala. We enlisted a professional evaluator and coach for executive leadership roles late last year, along with supplemental trainings for staff. We held restorative justice workshops for staff. We held moderated restorative justice workshops with our executive board and our partner organizations. We launched a strategic planning process, which we'll be sharing in 2023. We did diversity, equity, and inclusion assessments with staff and board alongside the Michigan Nonprofit Association, and we subsequently hired a DEI consultant to work alongside us with the strategic planning process. We held bi-monthly meetings with the executive committee to recommend and track organizational progress improvements. We restructured our internal team, promoting Veronica French as our office manager and Kate McCracken into the role of chief operating officer. We provided feedback in the creation of a newly structured role, Director of Outreach and Community Partnerships, coming up late this year. This is not the end of our continued efforts to engage with those most harmed by the criminal justice system. Our board and staff invite you to continue these conversations that matter and hope you will share your feedback with us at any time. Our doors remain open. As we look ahead, we're excited to share news with you this evening about developments in policies, campaigns, and the hard work of our staff who remain deeply devoted to this work. On behalf of our board, I want to express my sincere gratitude to our team and to our Chief Executive Officer, John Cooper, who has led our team through another successful year. At this time, I'd like to invite John to our virtual stage.
Hi, everybody. And thank you, Anna and Ken and Dr. Cabina. It's great to be here with you all. I am John Cooper, the Executive Director of Safe and Just Michigan. I want to take a moment to thank our staff and our board for their hard work this year. It's not an easy time to be advocating for criminal justice reform. Over the last 2 years, we've seen a familiar narrative take hold in the media and in Republican Party politics, namely that crime is up and soft on crime policies are to blame. So we need to bring back law and order and get tough on crime. Now, we know that isn't true. We've tried the tough on crime thing for decades, and it gave us mass incarceration, not genuine public safety. It makes no sense to double down on these failed policies. But plenty of people and organizations are bought into this narrative, and it's going to take all of us to beat it back once again. At Safe and Just Michigan, that work starts with our staff. I just want to acknowledge each staff member here. First, our COO, Kate McCracken, our grants manager, Cecilia Zavala, our office manager, Veronica French, our Clean Slate program manager, Kamau Sandiford, our senior communications specialist, Barbara Wieland, our senior policy analyst, Josh Ho, our senior research specialist, Cassie LaRue, our community engagement specialist, Ronnie Waters, our social media specialist, Ashley Blunt, and Dina Anderson, who does member services for us. Thank you so much to all of you for your hard work this year. It is a privilege to work with such bright, dedicated people. We didn't accomplish everything we set out to this year, but we continued to build a foundation for future success. I also want to thank our board members, many of whom have been with us for years. You've already met Anna, Dr. Gabina, and Ken. I want to give special recognition to Gary Ashby, who is the lone remaining founding member of our board, joining over 20 years ago. Eileen Hayes, who's the executive director of Michigan Faith in Action. Sherry Ware, the executive director of Still Standing and Redeemed Domestic Violence Intervention Program. Former state rep Joe Haveman, now at Hope Network, and former House Speaker Craig LaRoche, formerly of Prison Fellowship and now president and CEO of the Family Policy Alliance. Thank you all for your leadership and your support of our staff and our strategic goals. We appreciate you. Finally, thank you to our funders and partner organizations. There's too many of you to name, but we appreciate your collaboration and support and look forward to working with you further. It's now my pleasure to introduce a video that showcases some of the work we've done this past year. You'll hear more about our Clean Slate program a bit later on, but here's a short video featuring Erica Edwards, who's one of the thousands of people our program has helped. This video was produced by our partners at the Center for American Progress. Thanks to CAP for their support.
One of the downfalls of having a felony, you are denied apartments, you are denied jobs. It put a lot of stress on me. That affects home, it affects your life with your children, and I love being a mommy. I've never touched a gun, I've never fired a gun before. The whole thing is just so very hard to talk about. My brother, I knew he was a street guy before I moved in with him. So I remember that night clearly. My brother was shot. He was bleeding. I dropped him off at the emergency and a police car pulled behind me. He asked, "Is there a gun in the car?" And I'm like, "No, there's no gun in the car, officer." And he asked me to get out the car. And when I picked up my purse, I could feel the weight of a gun. It felt like gravity just pulled everything down in me. After I got that felony on my record, I applied for 2 apartment buildings that I really wanted to move into. And when my background check came back with the felony on it, I was blanket denied entry into those apartments. It stayed on my record for 6 long years. I like my new apartment. Oh, it feels amazing. My full kitchen, which I am going to enjoy because at my last apartment, my kitchen was so small that I didn't get to do all the baking and stuff I wanted to do. best day of my life was absolutely giving birth to my children. But the second best day of my life was getting a second chance in life. That expungement was everything. I'm a full-time mom, full-time student, and a full-time worker. My youngest, my 9-year-old, he was like, "You don't have a criminal record." I was like, "Yeah, absolutely right. I don't have a criminal record."
I believe Kamau and I are supposed to talk about the clean slate and the success of the program. Kamau, would you like to go ahead?
Sure. Thank you, Cecilia. Hi, everyone. My name is Kamau Sandyfoot. I'm the Clean Slate Program Manager for Safe and Just Michigan. I've been in this position for the past year, and over the past year, we've embarked on a number of clean slate initiatives throughout the state of Michigan. In large part, this has been down to the successful relationships that we've been able to cultivate with a number of our partners. Those partners include Michigan Liberation, Nation Outside, along with a number of other organizations that we've been able to connect with over the past year and even before that. And it's because of those relationships, we've truly been able to expand our outreach. We've gone as far as the Upper Peninsula in Michigan to hold expungement fairs. We've gone as far south as Berrien County, Benton Harbor, to do these fairs. And we've really seen the impact that the clean slate law has had on a number of people. Going into 2023, our goal is to continue with these types of clean slate initiatives, but we also hope to shift our focus to doing more public outreach with respect to the automated expungement program. And I know we'll kind of get into that later on. But again, we hope to continue to develop these relationships with our partners with the ultimate hope or goal of helping as many people as we can. So with that being said, I'll just pass it on to Cecilia, and she'll kind of fill you guys in on some more information on things we've been doing over the past year. Thank you.
Thank you, Kamau. So in my role here at Safe and Just, I'm new to the organization. One of my first tasks was to complete our report to the Clean Slate Initiative about the work that was done over the past year. And there was a lot of amazing work. We exceeded our goals in many of the areas that we proposed to do. And one I'm going to highlight for you is that Safe and Just Michigan and the coalition partners that Kamau mentioned earlier, the goal was to reach 10,000 individuals through education and outreach. And this year we reached over 19,000 individuals with our combined work. So that's some amazing work. Another one of our goals was to double the number of expungements. Originally, it was 3,000 people per year. We're about, on average, we're trying to get the records expunged. So we had hoped to increase that to about 6,000. And according to the Michigan Attorney General's office, this year, there have been over 10,000 expungement petitions filed. So we helped more than double the number of petitions for expungement this year. So we're really proud of that. And as we move into year 2, we're going to be focused on automatic expungement and really informing the community and our partners on how to access the website where the automatic expungement information will be housed, so that people will be aware that they no longer, after I believe it's April 11th is the date, when the automatic expungement will kick in. And so they will no longer have to mark felon on their application for employment or housing. And so that's a real big deal. We want to make sure that people are aware and know that that's coming up. So that's some of the great work we've been doing with Clean Slate, and we'll be talking to you later on about our fellowship program. And I think up next we have Ronnie Waters.
Hello, everyone. My name is Ronnie Waters. I'm Community Engagement Specialist with SJM. Over the past year, my primary focus of work has been around our campaign to end life without parole, the possibility of parole sentences for juveniles. We do this work in collaboration with great organizations like Campaign for the Fair Sentence of Youth, SATO, and many more groups and individuals. I have some good news and some bad news to report out to y'all today. The bad news is, in spite of the Herculean effort we put behind this campaign, the strong bipartisan support these juvenile bills have over at the Capitol, the cold hard fact is the bills won't be brought up for a vote this session. I can't lie, it's a hard pill for us to swallow here at SJM. Personally, when I first heard the news, it felt like I was hit with an overhead right punch from Mike Tyson. But now to the good news. We're fighters at SJM. That punch we took didn't knock us out. It energized us to fight harder and smarter. The bills will be reintroduced next session, and I predict that they will pass with flying colors. We're doubling down here at SJM. The fight is going more rounds than we initially predicted, but we're not panicking. Y'all can call me Buster Duckers if you want to. We're gonna win. The reason I'm so optimistic is because I see the commitment from our entire team. Ashley, our social media specialist, Barbara, our communication specialist, will be introducing SJM storytelling projects soon. We envision this as a critical piece for our new campaign. We brought together 14 former juvenile lifers in downtown Detroit and filmed them as they told their stories. What better way is there to promote the campaign than shining light on a group of people who have come home and are now flourishing? This sneak peek of video is from a man most of you may know, Mr. Ed Barack Sanders. We're going to show the video now.
By the name of Baraka. Baraka signify a change, a rebirth in my life. It means blessings. My life is full of blessings in spite of some of the serious mistakes I have made in the past. I am 64 years old, will be 65 in January. I spent 43 and a half years in Michigan prison. It was just before I went in, just after my 17th birthday, and came home just before my 60th birthday. Even though I maintain my innocence today, I was convicted not as a principal, as assessor. You know, I was said to have took and told someone to commit an act, okay? And I never done that. I never done that. When the police interrogated me, they say, we know that you haven't killed anybody, but we know that you know who did. And they promised me, we'll make sure you do a whole lot of time. And they done just that. They done just that. What it means to commit a crime as a youth, or to commit wrong as a youth, it means that one day you will grow out of that folly. You will grow out of that spontaneous behavior. That type of sentence will tell you that society, everyone that you live with here on this earth, is incapable of forgiving you. Everyone. But I still hold myself accountable and responsible for having a firearm in that car the night the gentleman got killed. I also hold myself accountable for having left the scene of an argument and went around a corner and allowed that firearm to be taken out the trunk of the car that I was operating. I hold myself accountable for going back to that scene. And when I was in prison, I became aware of the harm that I had did. Prison is not the answer to everything, and we live in a democracy. It's definitely not the answer in a democracy. We need all of us to be able to give each other a sense of mercy and forgiveness. Learn to forgive, even on your worst day. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ed. And I'll kick it to Josh Ho.
Thanks, Ronnie. It's been between a tough on crime backlash and election year politics. This last year was challenging for our legislative work in many ways, but that did not stop us from making progress and setting ourselves up for success in 2023. One of the things that we were most proud of in 2022 was the work of our outreach team on expungement fairs and clinics, as Kamau was telling you about before. Kamau, on behalf of SJM, along with a lot of other staff members, worked at 34 clinics and expungement fairs in 2022. At many of those clinics and fairs, other members of the SJM and Nation Outside organizations were present, and we are very much looking forward to the active date for automatic expungement, which has been mentioned before, is April of 2023. Another success story was phone fees. Safe and Just Michigan is part of a coalition that has been pushing for reductions in phone fees at Michigan prisons and jails, and this year the governor instituted a 40% reduction in the phone fees at Michigan prisons. Before this change, incarcerated people were paying 14 cents a minute, which is very high nationally, and now they're paying 8.7 cents per minute. In addition, all the people incarcerated in Michigan prisons will now get 10 minutes of free phone calls a week. These reduced rates are expected to save Michigan families as much as $11 million a year. For those who are curious, this was accomplished by having general fund money replace a surcharge that was being used to pay for programming. In addition, toward the end of 2022, with the help of Representative Tanisha Yancey, House Bill 6363 was introduced to make all prison and jail phone calls free. Obviously, we will be hoping to reintroduce that legislation in the new session in next January. And I also want to share that, there have been some other states that have moved in this direction. Connecticut and most recently California have reduced prison phone calls to zero. You just heard from Ronnie about our work around ending juvenile life without parole. Currently, those bills are Senate Bills 848 to 851. Again, we are sure that package will be reintroduced in January and hopefully we'll be getting a hearing soon after. We've also been working as part of a coalition to pass Michigan's bail reform package, which is made up of House Bills 4536 to 4543. This package is the last of the recommendations of the Michigan Task Force on Jail and Pretrial Incarceration, a bipartisan task force in 2020 that included law enforcement, prosecuting attorneys, activists, local leaders, and directly impacted people, and which was helmed by Chief Justice McCormick and Lieutenant Governor Gilchrist. At Safe and Just Michigan, we believe that nobody should be held pretrial only because of the amount of money they have in their pockets, and as such, we are very hopeful to see action on this package early next term. Finally, I believe the most important thing we can do as an organization is work to reduce life and long sentences. People with long sentences represent an ever-increasing part of the incarceration picture, and we cannot solve mass incarceration without finding answers for long and indeterminate sentences. We are working on several things in this area, and I think John will be discussing that more in a few minutes. Thanks so much for being part of the membership of Safe and Just Michigan. And now I'd like to turn it over to John Cooper, who will be talking about next year.
Thanks, Josh. So as Josh said, several of our major priorities stalled this year as the legislature basically shut down for the year in June. So because of this, several of our priority campaigns from this year will continue and restart in the next legislative session. I think most of you know this, but Michigan has 2-year legislative sessions. So the 21-22 session is ending in December, and all the bills will need to be reintroduced in 23 for the 23-24 session. But we are planning on working on bail reform and juvenile life without parole and phone fees again next session. We're also going to be working on some, we think, very exciting new pieces of legislation. The one I'd like to highlight for you is what's known as a second look bill. And what that means is it offers everybody who meets certain criteria an opportunity to petition for resentencing. And the draft bill that the coalition working on this has agreed on would have juveniles and seniors getting the opportunity to petition for resentencing with their sentencing judge after 10 years incarcerated, and everybody else after 15 years. This bill is based on one that was passed locally in DC and has resulted in dozens of resentencings and releases. And we hope it gets a fair look by opponents of reform in Lansing. Because the resentencing decision is up to the sentencing judge or their successor, the second look should not be seen as inconsistent with truth in sentencing or the original sentence or anything in the Crime Victims' Rights Act. And normally those are the three kind of areas of resistance we see from Prosecutors Association, certain victims' rights groups, and certain law enforcement groups. If we can keep those groups neutral on the bill, that would really set us up for success. So we have our fingers crossed on that. No doubt there will be some opposition, but we've got a great coalition of support for this. Many organizations and individuals from the Sentencing Project to the Michigan Collaborative to End Mass Incarceration, many others. We're also planning to work with NLA chapters throughout the MDOC. I was actually at IMAX on Monday singing the praises of Second Look. And there was some real enthusiasm in the crowd about it. I should also say we're going to be working with various legal services organizations to maximize the amount of legal support available to litigate second look cases if the bill passes. We're also planning to continue working on removing conviction-based barriers to employment and housing in Michigan. Those campaigns haven't been announced yet, but I can tell you one is going to relate to lookbacks on public housing, and another is going to look at government contract clauses and also lookbacks for employment and licensure and Medicaid participation in the healthcare industry. Finally, on the legislative side, we're planning to advocate for a sentencing commission. This may be a little dry for everybody, but we think it's really important. We released a report on Michigan sentencing guidelines last January, and that highlighted the need for oversight and ultimately an overhaul of the sentencing guidelines here, which are extraordinarily punitive, among the most punitive in the country. And we think the first step in the process of overhauling the guidelines is to establish a sentencing commission. The commission that created the current guidelines in 1998 was defunded as soon as the guidelines passed. I think obviously because the people who passed it didn't want oversight and knew they had gotten the kind of guidelines they wanted. So we need to get a commission set up that has experts, that has people who understand the research on recidivism and aging out of crime, so we can get a set of guidelines written that actually make sense. Finally, we're going to be continuing our work on implementation of the Clean Slate Law. As several colleagues mentioned, the automatic expungement provisions go into effect in less than 6 months on April 11, 2023. We estimate that 500,000 to 1 million people will see their criminal records sealed on that day, which is a big deal that I think has been underreported publicly. I think you may hear more about it going into next year as we get closer to the day the policy goes live. And part of that is because we're going to be doing everything we can to reach people whose records might be sealed, because there's no direct notice of sealing to the individual whose record is sealed. They need to know that this policy is going into effect and know where to check their record. As Cecilia mentioned, we're expecting there to be an online portal for people to check their status, their sealing status. We are working with the state to create that. And we'll have more details about it down the road, but there's going to need to be a massive public outreach and mobilization campaign to make sure that people know to check their record, check the portal, know that their records are being sealed. Because if that connection isn't made, a person might continue to check the box on employment and housing applications, and that would totally defeat the purpose of doing all this. So I guess beyond that, and we are, I think, going to take some Q&A at the end of the evening. There's going to be some other issues, no doubt, that come up. And you know, if you don't subscribe to our newsletter, please do. It's wonderfully written by Barbara, and will enable you to keep up with what's going on inside the organization. And with that, I believe it is time for the SJM board election, which will be led by board member Sherry Ware.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Sherry Ware. I am the Executive Director of Still Standing and Redeemed, a nonprofit organization in Detroit that serves both survivors of domestic violence and those who cause harm. It has been my honor to be able to be a board member of Safe and Just Michigan since 2017. Tonight, I will be facilitating the Safe and Just Michigan board elections. As a guest this evening, we consider you a member of our organization. This allows you to vote in our board elections. This includes members of our virtual audience as well. So we have 3 individuals who are currently on our board who are seeking re-election tonight for a 3-year term, and 1 individual up for election for the first time. For our virtual audience, a poll will be launched to allow you to vote yes or no for this nominee. You can find that poll tab on the right of the screen next to the chat box. So our first nominee is Anna Cohn. Anna is up for re-election. She is seeking re-election to our board for a 3-year term. She has served on our board since 2014 and is our current board president. She is the reentry and parole team lead at the State Appellate Defender Office. Do you re-elect Anna Cohn to a 3-year term to the Safe and Just Michigan board? Please turn to your poll tab on the right-hand side of your screen to place your yes or no vote for Anna's re-election to the Safe and Just Michigan board. Our next nomination for re-election is Dr. Jennifer Kobina. She is also seeking re-election for a 3-year term. She has served on our board since 2019 and is our current board treasurer. She is an associate professor at the School of Criminal Justice at Michigan State University. Do you re-elect Dr. Jennifer Kobina to a 3-year term to the Safe and Just Michigan board? Please turn your poll tab on the right-hand side of your screen to place your yes or no vote for Jennifer's re-election to the Safe and Just Michigan board. Our next nominee is Monica Jenner. Monica is also seeking re-election to our board for a 3-year term. Monica has served on our board since 2013 and is our current vice president. She is the program director for ARO at Northwest Initiative. Do you re-elect Monica to a 3-year term to the Safe and Just Michigan board? Please turn to your poll tab on the right-hand side of your screen and place your yes or no vote for Monica's re-election to the Safe and Just Michigan board. Last but not least is Ken Nixon. Ken is seeking election to our board for a 3-year term. He was appointed to an officer role as secretary in June 2022 when Secretary Jonathan Sachs stepped down from his role. He is the president of the Organization of the Exonerees. Do you elect Ken Nixon to a 3-year term to Safe and Just Michigan Board? Please turn your poll tab on the right-hand side of your screen to place your yes or no vote for Ken's re-election to the Safe and Just Michigan Board. Thank you, everyone. I see we have an overwhelming support for his re-election to the board. I would like to thank all of our participants tonight for participating in this election. We greatly appreciate your input in our work, and I will now turn it over to Anna to continue the conclusion of our event this evening.
Good evening again. Thank you. I want to thank you on behalf of our executive board for the re-election and the trust that you hold in us. At this time, I am excited to welcome back to the screen Cecilia, along with who will be leading the conversation with our newest Fund Development Fellows.
On the screen.
Hello, everybody. Again, I'm Cecilia Zavala. I am the grants manager here at Safe and Just Michigan. And one of the joys of my job is working with our fund development fellowship program. It's an honor and a privilege for me to be able to work with folks that are directly impacted, such as myself, and work on building capacity and building power with our two wonderful fund development fellows, Ms. Kimberly Woodson and Mr. Scott Tompkins. They're going to come on and talk to you a little bit about themselves and their experience as fund development fellows with Safe and Just Michigan. So Scott and Kimberly, take it away.
Thank you, Cecilia. It's been an honor for me to be selected or chosen to work with Safe and Just as a fund development fellow. Especially nice since I'm way up in northern Michigan. I'm up by Traverse City, and it's kind of a treat for us to have a little bit of a nod and be involved with some of the activities going on in Southeast Michigan, which is a wonderful thing. As Cecilia said, I am a impacted person too. I'm formerly incarcerated. And I'm able to work with a couple different nonprofits up here in the Traverse City area. And because I'm a fellow, I'm learning all kinds of great skills to bring back and incorporate with the work I'm doing with, especially before, during, and after incarceration, which is a group I'm working with in the Traverse City area. So learning a lot of the ins and outs of grant writing, some of the working with the logic model. And it's not just making the ask, which I think my colleague may get to here in a moment, but it's also learning all the ins and outs of raising money for an organization such as Safe and Just, or whatever organizations you folks may be part of. It's a pretty complicated, complex world of potential funders out there. And so Cecilia, with Cecilia's guidance, and Kimberly and I able to kind of learn some of the ropes on navigating some of those nuances of raising money on a larger scale, especially for such a well-respected organization like Safe and Just. So I'm going to hand over the reins to my colleague, Miss Kimberly Woodson, at this moment.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kimberly Woodson, founder and director of Redeem It Kimberly. And it's an honor and a privilege as a juvenile lifer who served almost 30 years in prison to be chosen as a fellow to learn how to write grants. It's like taking a baby and teaching them how to swim and knowing that you're about to throw them in the ocean, but you know they're safe. It's that much of a safety net. And to be surrounded by Safe and Just members, to hear somebody explain a logic mind, wow, phenomenal. My mind just blew. And I can't wait to be a cohort, to be a alumni, to come back and mentor someone else in the future that has the same love and grit that I have for the learning, the knowledge to keep growing. Because what you don't understand, and give me a moment, is that to be able to give back and heal the community that we cause so much harm in, it's everything. And a lot of us are so close to the problem. We know the solution, but we're the furthest away from the resources. So for them to teach us how to get the resources and follow our hearts and heal our community, one returning neighbor at a time, is indescribable. So reach into your hearts, reach into your pocketbooks, please give so that somebody can have the phenomenal experience that I have. I hate for this to be over with. I just promise you. I wish I could try again, but that would be selfish. So please give somebody else another opportunity. Thank you. With that, I'm turning it back over to my wonderful mentor, Cecilia.
Thank you, Kimberly. This project is very near and dear to my heart. It is a passion project of mine as well. And my father is a retired Detroit firefighter. My mom also works in nonprofit. And one of the values they taught me was making sure that when you have a success, that you bring people along with you that come from where you came from. And that's why this project is really important. And our vision is to expand the fellowship program to allow for, right now we have 2 fellows per year. We'd like to expand the program to allow for additional fellows and to create an alumni kind of group or association of folks that have gone through the fellowship program, so we can increase the number of people that we serve and increase the number of folks that we build capacity and power with. And this is for directly impacted individuals. So my ask for you tonight, and I was trying to paste the link in the chat, but I'm not able to for some reason. But if you go onto our website at Safe and Just Michigan, there's a donate button, and we're asking for donations to help to support, to expand our fellowship program so that we can reach more directly impacted individuals and work together. Fund development and grant writing are essential skills. And if you're doing this work, this is how we can better prepare our community and equip them with the skills they need to succeed. And so I'm really proud and honored to be a part of Safe and Just and to spearhead the fellowship program. And I ask that you support us in increasing our capacity to serve. So with that, I think I'm going to hand it back to Anna and wish you all a good night.
Thank you so much, Cecilia. Thank you, Scott. Thank you to my dear friend, Kim. You are such a delight, and you know how much we all love you. So thank you. I'm always so delighted to hear from the fellows, to hear how much they've learned and to hear how valuable of an experience it is. So I want to thank everyone for being with us this evening. I want to thank you for your continued support of Safe and Just Michigan. I would also like to take an opportunity to thank my colleagues, my board members, my fellow board members, Dr. Jennifer Cabina, Joe Havelman, Eileen Hayes, Craig DeRoche, Ken Nixon, and thank you to Sherry Ware for facilitating our board elections. I'm going to bring John and Josh back onto the screen in case there are any questions regarding the policy updates that were shared or organizational updates. If you have questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat and we will address them.
Hey, John, I know we already answered this question in the chat, but the question that we got so far is the second look legislation would be reviewed by the original prosecutors, correct? Just curious if somebody wrongfully convicted whose original prosecutors will never admit their mistake will rubber stamp denying the second look. Thank you.
Yeah, this is a great question, and I think we're going to get lots of similar questions given just the number of different circumstances folks can be facing with the resentencing. The second look model is nice in a couple ways. It's superior to the parole board model in that in wrongful conviction cases, because the parole board asks everyone to admit their guilt before giving them fair consideration. That's obviously not going to work with someone who's still incarcerated on a wrongful conviction. They can't get reopened. So in this situation, what you'd be able to do is petition for a second look, and that would go to the judge. Now, it's up to the judge whether to hear the case, but you'd be able to file lots of supporting documents about mitigation, if that's relevant to your case, about what you've accomplished while incarcerated. Any evidence of a wrongful or tainted conviction can go in there as well. And then it's just up to the judge to consider it. The local prosecutor will have an opportunity to object and to disagree with the evidence presented, but ultimately it's up to the judge. And if the evidence of wrongful conviction is better than what the prosecutor can put forward, in objection, then, I would hope the judge would do the right thing.
Yeah, I did want to add that there is, in instances where prosecutors are interested, or they think that they go back through their files, they find someone who maybe there was problems with, they can initiate the process too. They may not be able to stop the process when someone else has put it in, but one of the provisions in at least the bills we're considering is prosecutor initiated. So there is an opportunity for them to in a positive way impact the procedure. Yeah, go ahead, John.
So there are some counties like Oakland County that used to have very repressive prosecutors and don't anymore. So those are counties where there's going to be some opportunity to get cases reopened going through the prosecutor's office as well. And I think, Josh, you were going to say we did get another question. Yep. Is there any work or research on disparate sentencing and reducing it? And this is covered in the very large sentencing report that we did last year. I'll be honest with you, it's maybe too long for most people, but there's some really good research in there that hasn't been done by anybody else on disparities in sentencing county to county.
For those who are curious, you can find that on our website.
Yeah, Kate is very quick on that. And, particularly with habitual charging, there's some great content in there. There are some counties where everybody who could conceivably be charged gets habitual, and there's other counties where nobody gets charged. And that's just one example of the ways the sentencing guidelines are failing their original goals of uniformity and proportionality. So that's briefly what that report is about. And we have a bunch of copies if anyone would like one.
We probably should give some credit to Barb and Annie for doing that report.
Yeah, Barb Levine and Annie Mahar spent a better part of a year writing that thing. It's really well done.
I do want to acknowledge that we have someone, Scott Holmgren. Your hand is up. If you have a question, we would love for you to put it in the chat. And of course, we welcome any other questions that folks may have. Well, that means we gave a great update. There are no questions left. So in that case, I do want to thank everybody. Thank you so much, John and Josh and the whole team. You guys have been doing just a phenomenal job bringing so much attention to these really important issues in criminal justice, and I'm very proud to be involved. Someone was trying to type something.
We do have a question. It's do you mind if I take it? Or
Yeah, go ahead.
The question, John, is can you suggest a group who could take up the following project related to returning citizens? Here's my idea. I know a ton of people who travel a lot for work. I know a lot of returning citizens are looking for temporary housing. Is there any organization who could take up this idea of donating hotel points?
So we have a lot of great partner organizations that do reentry. I mean, Anna actually does reentry for Sado, but Brighter Way, Fresh Coast Alliance,
Arrow.
797. are all great organizations. So I don't know, Anna, do you, I don't know points well enough to say how hard it is, but it's a good idea.
I'm looking back at this. Housing is such a difficult beast when you're dealing with returning citizens. In my experience, you know, when I've worked on housing for returning citizens, it's usually through Airbnb or Vrbo. I'm trying to think, as far as temporary housing with hotel points, I know that the Department of Corrections, when they don't have a placement for folks to go, especially those who are released for medical reasons, they will put them up in a sometimes subpar hotel. And it could be worth looking into with some of the community corrections groups. I'm a member of the Michigan Community Corrections Advisory Board, and it's certainly something that we could look into. I would have to determine whether or not that is in the Safe and Just Michigan purview, or if that really falls under MDOC, I guess, determine whether or not it's a statewide thing. Let me know where you're located. I'm going to put my email address for the State Appellate Defender's Office in the chat, and hopefully we can talk about it a little bit more. Any other questions? All right, folks. Well, once again, thank you for an engaging membership meeting. I'm so excited to see many of you at our celebration on November 1st in person or virtually. We appreciate all you do and all you've done, and we look forward to another successful year. And again, our doors are open if you ever have any feedback or questions for us. Thanks, and have a wonderful night.